Yoga Connection with Zorananda is a deep dive into the world of yoga, exploring the rich history of tradition, methodology, and practices both ancient and modern. Follow along as yoga is explored through solo episodes to guest interviews to understand its vast reach around the world. Hello and welcome to the Yoga Connection. My name is Zorananda, and today we are wrapping up a massive 16-part series all on Ashtanga Yoga, now with the final limb, Samadhi. So this is the most important one out of all of them. It's the kind of crescendo at the end of this massive buildup of a lot of information. I was thinking of doing a kind of summary of all of it, but I think I just want to focus on Samadhi and maybe do a separate episode that is a kind of summary of everything. So for those of you who haven't listened to every single episode, I'm thinking the next episode will be a kind of short wrap up of all the limbs and how to approach studying it and how to absorb all this information, because there's a lot. And that's partly the reason why I'm just going to stick to Samadhi, because right now I have 6 yoga books in front of me that I'm going to be referencing, because the Samadhi topic can go one in two ways. I can have a really short episode defining what Samadhi is and kind of leaving it in this limbo state of, well, you can't really explain it. You have to experience it, so there's no point in me talking about it. Or I can rifle through all the yoga texts that I have, and I can seek for the words that the masters have spoken and how to approach describing what Samadhi is from not only my mind, but also the minds of incredible mystics and yogis from the more so recent past. So instead of just using Google and going into the AI and saying, what is Samadhi, and reading it from that, I thought, why not actually go to the source? Because luckily for me, I've traveled all over the world. I've collected yoga books from a few different masters. And so to me, these are the most pertinent and the most accurate. And they all fall along the same lineage, particularly the Kriya Yoga lineage through Yogananda and Sri Yukteswar Lahiri Mahasaya. So what I did is I went through the books that I have, and I just went to the index or the appendix at the end and looked for the word Samadhi to find particularly the different kinds of Samadhi, because it's really not enough to just take the word and be like, okay, this is what Samadhi is. This is what the definition is, which I'm going to do anyways, but I really wanted to find particular information about the different kinds of Samadhi, because we're not just dealing with a word, we're not just dealing with an abstract concept, we're actually dealing with an experience. And so I think it's both important to understand the definition and to understand it as an experience, that when you are starting your yoga journey, the progression towards something more phenomenal is slowly becoming naturalized, where your first experiences and your kind of first round of yoga is within a state of elation. You know, you'll do your yoga practice, you'll do your breath work, you'll go into Shavasana, you'll come out of it. You're very relaxed, yet your mind is alert, yet you're still coming back to yourself in some sense. And it's almost difficult to communicate. It's almost difficult to be human for a second. And you're noticeably, with difficulty, somewhere else, right? So you'll notice that you're in your body and you're back to your life and you're back to the world, but you're kind of somewhere else and you notice it, but it's a little difficult to really put your finger on what's happening and where you are. And so those are the first seeds of developing a sense of what more there is to consciousness. And in the history of yoga, and when you get into the texts and you get into Vedanta, and then you kind of spread out that way into more and more literature, it starts to paint the picture of what samadhi is and what it does for you. And what it does for you is not like, oh, I'm going to go to this place because it's going to give me this thing. It's going to bestow upon you an effect that is noticeably out of your control. And you are in a blissful state to express that and to accept it. And so what samadhi is a form of enlightenment. So it is a form of super consciousness. It is a form of ecstatic state of mind, ecstatic state of being, where you are noticeably different than how you were prior to it. And this is associated with a kind of awakening. And there's a Western way of thinking about it and an Eastern way of thinking about it. And usually in the Western side of things, there's this association with hitting rock bottom or kind of being at the lowest of your low, and then something happens to trigger an awakening and you come out of this low part of your life, and suddenly there's like a coming to God or coming to Jesus. Like usually in the Western world, it's finding Jesus, and suddenly you're much more religious. You know, you want to go to church, you want to pray, you want to read scripture. You are coming out of the trenches and the dredges of your life to then be in the light of something greater than yourself. So on the Eastern side, it's more through deliberate action. So rather than digging yourself a hole and coming to a pit in your life of despair that you then rebound out of, that you navigate the darkness and you navigate these tendencies in your life. And in yoga, it's called kleshas or kleshas. And it's like these patterns and these habits and these grooves within our body and within our consciousness, within our mind, that we are trying to cleanse ourselves of these patterns, and so that our dharma as a spiritual being becomes very clear, and that our karma, our actions of our life, are then geared towards propelling the potential of that dharma. And what starts to wash away are our material possessiveness. And where usually in the Western side, it's material possessiveness that kind of digs us that hole. And that the more possessive we become, the more material we become, and the further and further away from anything kind of spiritual, we have this notable like rebound back, and we realize like, oh, these things, they're all empty. They don't actually provide anything for me. And so what's going to actually fill my heart with joy is something that's been within me this whole time. And that like realization has been with me the whole time. In the Eastern or in the yogic tradition, that is well known. So it is well known that within us, we have these seeds of like Brahma, or we have an Atman that is wanting to desire unification with Brahma and to then access something greater than ourselves. So that greater than ourselves is the Samadhi realm. And the Ashtanga Yoga practice, particularly all these 8 limbs, are gearing us and preparing us for that illumination. And so that the body is well prepared and kind of like lubricated to do so, right? And so I'm going to get into these books right away here. I just wanted to kind of go on that ramble as a kind of like a preface to what we're going to look into here. So again, I have 6 books of different authors. So the first one I'm going to get into is the Upanishads, and this one is introduced and translated by Eknath Easwaran. And I haven't fully gone through this book. I'm super lazy when it comes to reading, and it's because right now I'm reading the Stormlight series by Brandon Sanderson, and they're like 1,400 page books. And so I'm like trying to focus on finishing the 4th book of this series, which is just kind of bothering me. And so having a moment like this where I can go through these books and be like, oh yeah, I really need to actually fully read some of these books. But luckily this is a new one that I got really fairly recently. Some of these books I've had for years and I have read and gone through them. Pretty much all of these except the last one I'm going to go through. But I went through this one to look for mentions of Samadhi, or kind of talking about what Samadhi is. So what I'm going to do with these books, I found sections that I can just quote, and I'm going to read through that section and then kind of pick it apart and go through it and kind of go through this one at a time. I'm hoping this fills up the hour. I was thinking to myself earlier, this might be a 2-hour podcast, but it's just me talking. I think an hour is good enough. So this is in the introduction, just on page 40. And, Eknath says, quote, "In Samadhi, reality is condensed into pure potential, without dimensions, without time, without any differentiation. Physicists do not say there was nothing before the Big Bang. They say everything came from that, and nothing more can be said. Similarly, Samadhi is not emptiness, but Purnata, which is the plenitude, complete fullness." And so, side thing, there is a mantra specifically about complete fullness, which we'll get into right after this. So continuing the quote, "The whole reality is there, inner as well as outer, not only matter and energy, but all the time, space, causality, and states of consciousness. That fullness the Upanishads call Sat, absolute reality, in which all of creation is implicit as an organism is implicit in DNA or a tree, in a tiny seed." So that's really interesting that he talks about the plenitude, the complete fullness. So there's this mantra, and I'm just going to look it up quick. I know it, but sometimes I botch it. This is interesting too. So this mantra that I'm going to say here is from the Isha Upanishad. So I wonder if it's in this book. Isha 51. So there's probably going to be moments like this where I'm looking through the book. I'm going to try to edit it so that there aren't these large gaps that you have to sit through. Okay, so in this book they have the Vedic Shanti mantra, but it's just translated. But the Sanskrit is Om Purnamida Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamavevashishate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So that mantra is more of a truth, right? So when we hear mantras and we hear it sung, we think it's some like beautiful incantation. But way in the past, this was the way to memorize knowledge and to memorize wisdom and to memorize truth and to keep it going and to put power into it. So And we know this about music. How many times have you been listening to a song, either it's your favorite song or a new song that you've heard, and it gives you chills and it gives you goosebumps and it just rocks your whole body, and you're like, wow, it provides this little kind of sparkle within you. And so these mantras are to engage the nervous system that way as well, and to embed this truth within you. So that mantra that I just sang has a meaning to it. And what it translates to is, all this is full. All that is full. From fullness, fullness comes. When fullness is taken from fullness, fullness still remains. So let's replace fullness with completeness, right? All is complete. So all this is complete. All that is complete. From completeness, completeness comes. When completeness is taken from completeness, completeness still remains. So it's pointing to a fundamental truth about the exchange of energy, right? And that's what we know when we are in school. We learn that you cannot create nor destroy energy. What is energy stays as energy. It's just a transference from one state to another. This is saying the same thing, but this mantra is like 2,000 years old. It's older than any Western science we have. So this is what I find really fascinating about yoga, is that it is more of a science than ever being a religion. And what conflates the two is that there is deity worship, but the deity worship is a representation of the realms and the states of consciousness that we can enter by enacting this science of yoga, right? So we're just getting started here, and we're going to unpack a lot in this episode. It's going to be great. I've been planning this for a couple weeks now. I didn't do it last week because I thought to myself, I really need to get through these books, and I really need to paint a good picture of what Samadhi is for everybody here. And side note, I hit a cool milestone in my podcast just recently. I typically averaged maybe, a few listeners a day. Like I said in past episodes, this podcast is a hobby of mine, and I'm doing it for the love of the game. But just in the last couple months, I'm now hitting about 50 listeners a day, which is huge. So I just want to thank everybody who's starting to tune in. I'll do my whole spiel at the end of the episode as well about links and everything in the description as well. I want to continue on. I just wanted to highlight that right now and just say thank you for everyone that is listening. I have a lot more to get into after this series, and we'll see at the end of this episode. I'll talk about that as well. So let's continue on. So that is just from one Upanishad, and there are let me see here, at least a dozen Upanishads. So there's the Isha, the Kata, Brihadaranyaka, Chandogya, Shvetashvatara, Mundaka, Mandukya, and so on. Kena, Prashna, Taittiriya, Aitareya, and then minor Upanishads. So there's about a dozen in total. And the Upanishads, again, are old. These are old texts that talk about this stuff, right? Which is really fascinating. So the next one I'm getting into, the next book that I'm getting into is, in my opinion, the Bible of yoga. And this is the one book that's helped me really early on and along the way of how to deepen my practice and how to introduce practices that are no longer surface level practices. So when you go to a yoga studio, you're really only ever going to get surface level practice. You can go to a yoga studio and you can do the yoga practice every day for 5 years, but the asana and the pranayama practice that you're going to be doing in the studios isn't ever going to let you really dive into the yogic processes and the initiations. It's only until you start to really interface with yoga masters. So in this case, getting the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. It's written by Swami Mukti and it's based off of the Shivananda Bihar school. And Swami Mukti Saraswati is an Australian woman who basically took 20 different copies of the Hatha Yoga Pradipika and compiled it into one source. And it is just excellent. So if you're a yogi on the path and you're somewhat new and you really want to start getting into more of the historical practices and really diving into more of the in-depth practices, get the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. You can order it from the Bihar school. It's also free online. I'll put a link in my description. There's just a PDF version online. I like having physical copies of things personally. So I would say get the book, and that way you can open it at any time and you don't have to stare at a screen, right? So let's get into it. What does the Hatha Yoga Pradipika have to say about it? So on page 471, they have a diagram. And I'm going to put this in the description as well. So when you're listening to this right now, click on the description and look for the link specifically for the description or the diagram. So it says at the top of the page, progressive stages of Samadhi. And they have this like kind of chart of the different levels of Samadhi. So it starts with Nirbija Samadhi, where Dharma Mega, the cloud of virtue and complete Vairagya. And it also consists of the Nirbija Rityam, changeless form. Then the next section is the Sabija Samadhi, Asmita, trace of ego in the form of samskara, Ananda, awareness of object as bliss, Vichara, oneness with subtle form of object, Vitarka, oneness with gross form of object, and this then splits into Nirvitarka, Savitarka, and then there's Samadhi, Satyam, relative truth, Dhyana, concentrated process of consciousness, Dharana, object as formulated pattern of consciousness. So look at that. Dhyana, concentrated pattern of consciousness. It does not say meditation. So I just love finding those little Easter eggs that just like point back to, yes, dhyana does not mean meditation. Concentrated pattern of consciousness. You were looking at patterns of consciousness and you were in a state to observe and on the concentrated pattern of consciousness. So on page 472, it says, quote, there are many yogic terms indicating the highest reality. Raja Yoga, supreme state of union. Samadhi, complete or perfect perception. Concentration, unmani, without individual mind. Manonmani, mind without mind, or cosmic consciousness without finite consciousness. Amaratva, beyond death, immortal. Laya, dissolution. Tattva, essence or thatness. Shunya shunya, voidless void. Padam padam, supreme state. Amanaskam, condition without finite mind. Advaitam, non-duality, so on and so forth. All these words express the pristine condition of Shiva, Brahman, Atman, which is beyond any condition. So you can get a sense here that the yogis were super complicated. They not only were figuring things out on the surface through the asana practice, pranayama practice, as soon as you get into dharana, dhyana, and samadhi, it's now opening you up to a whole world. And they have words for everything. It's actually intimidating and really, really interesting at the same time. And so here's the important thing about samadhi and really why a studio yoga class isn't going to really ever bring you to a state of samadhi or yoga on YouTube or on Instagram, right? And it's for this reason. Quote, when a person has experienced the fruits of Raja Yoga, can he know its real value? Those who have never experienced it will be unable to appreciate its worth. Swapmarama has divulged the secret of inner awakening. Guru. No matter how much you practice yoga, if there is no guru, there can be no enlightenment. The quickest method to evolve the inner consciousness is through devotion and service to one's guru. He may not be a literate or educated person, his external personality may not be in accordance with yours, but the light of his soul will enlighten all devoted to him. His words are the Atma Shakti which is transmitted to you. They are the seeds which you water when you apply and practice what he has said. When the seeds bloom forth, his words become the living reality. A living guru is the manifestation of your own Atma, and Atma only appears when you have reached a certain stage of inner awareness. What the external guru says and wants for you is the voice of your own Atma. Therefore, without his will, there is nothing you can do. Guru can give you instant awakening if he wants to. Therefore, the one way to Samadhi is grace or anugraha from the guru. The Garan Samhita states that, quote, Samadhi, the supreme yoga, is attained by great merit and earned previously. It is achieved by the grace of the guru and the devotion to him. That yogi soon acquires this exquisite experience who is convinced by what he has learned and heard from his guru, who has developed self-confidence and whose mind is becoming more and more enlightened. So like I said in, I think, my last episode, Samadhi has gatekeepers, right? The states of enlightenment isn't open for everybody. And the guru acts as this gatekeeper. The guru is scanning around, looking at people and saying, okay, who is going to be an anointed one to then bestow this power upon? And it sounds weird. I know that sounds weird. It actually triggers the shit out of people when they think that they need a guru to then help them with something. But we've had gurus all of our lives. We need somebody to teach us something. We can't isolate ourselves and learn to do something solely by ourselves and expect that we're going to have some kind of level of mastery. We need to have the reflection of a master to be able to show us the faults that we are perpetuating in our isolation. So you can do yoga in your room through YouTube all you want. You can do it every single day and you can have really great results. But you are always going to be missing a key component to your development by not actually interacting with a yoga master. And that doesn't necessarily mean you have to have a physical yoga master, right? You still need that. But there are masters through history who supersede time. And so this is why I venerate a multitude of masters, and particularly through the Kriya Yoga, because I know that masters like Yogananda, his guru Shri Yukteswar, his Padam guru Lahiri Manasaya, and then Babaji, that there's this transmittance that comes through. And the important thing of then finding a physical living guru is that that transmittance completes its circuit, right? So if I were to only ever read these books, if I'm only ever looking at the material through words on a paper, I'm only ever interacting with my own mind. And though I can receive the insights from those masters, from those books, I can go into meditations, I can see visions of them and all this stuff, that the completeness of that loop is going to come from then the physical guru who can then show up in your life. And so that person to me is Yogrishi Vishwaketu, right? So I fortunately met Vishwaji before I got into all these books. And it was a cascading effect that the more I spent time with my teacher, the more I found this information, and the more I can see the kind of council of masters that I was developing. And then it started to make sense to me. Okay, this is now the group that I'm going to work with that's going to help me with attaining some state of samadhi, which in my opinion, in my experience, I have attained those states. I have gone to other realms in different ways, and especially through meditation, through, I keep saying that word just for the ease of it, but through dharana and dhyana, that I have noticeably gone into altered states of consciousness and touched something greater than myself, and with the guidance of my guru, with the guidance of these gurus as well. And so on your path to Samadhi, when you've gone through asana and pranayama, you've gone through all the yamas and niyamas, and now you're wanting to introduce something else, you are going to want to start to seek for a legitimate guru. And that can be hard to do when you don't know where to start. Luckily for me, because when I was in my late teens and 20s, I was so obsessed with the occult, and not in the typical like dark way of it and doing dark ritual magic, that I just became obsessed with the fantastic stories of phenomenal experiences like astral projection and lucid dreaming and doing psychedelics, and like this whole world of experience, that within that I was able to weave through all the dark occult stuff and then find the yoga stuff. And from finding the yoga stuff, I was able to put myself on a track where then synchronistically I drew the right people in to then find my teacher Vishwaji, right? And it was like back in 2011, this whole journey of going to Thailand for a yoga school, then a local yoga studio was doing a yoga teacher training, and then I came back from Thailand and I did that yoga teacher training, and for the last week Vishwaji taught, and then that's where I was initiated into his practice. And then from that point on, I'm like, this is my teacher, this is the practice that I'm teaching, and I've been teaching that practice since 2012. And so for 14 years now, I've been really dedicated to the Ashtanga Yoga practice. And unfortunately, in the state of the yoga studios right now, especially here in Edmonton, it's really hard to specifically teach that practice. And so what I just do when I'm teaching at Oxygen Yoga and Fitness, which is the epitome of corporate yoga, but I have really great students, I'm able to teach the Ashtanga Yoga practice, and I tell my students, hey, what we're doing is we're actually doing this practice that I learned. It's just adapting it to the studio. And here is the progression of the class. And we're still doing pranayama. We're still doing a good asana practice. I'm following the lineage, or I'm following the outline of the Ashtanga Yoga practice. And that's to honor my guru, because I know, like it says, right, in that quote, it's about service to your master or service to your guru and service to others that will help you along the way in achieving a state of samadhi. It's going to develop yourself more and more in servitude. So I'm hoping this makes sense. Given that, more and more people are listening to this podcast, I think it is. There's, people are starting to like it, which is great. But let's continue on. We're already at the halfway mark, and I've only gone through 2 books. The next book is the Autobiography of a Yogi, which is my favorite yoga book. This yoga book is just full of so many amazing stories. The life of Yogananda and his trials and tribulations, and meeting all these crazy yogis with superpowers, and going to the United States and establishing the Self-Realization Fellowship there. But in it, he talks a lot about samadhi. So I found 5 different sections that I'm going to go through here. And I'm just going to quote from the book and then kind of talk about it after. As the Hatha Yoga Pradipika purports, that it's important to find a guru, and a guru who's going to be able to bestow samadhi to you. And so in this section is a dialogue between a disciple and a guru, and the disciple wanting an experience of samadhi. So this is actually a dialogue between Yogananda and another yogi, just to be clear here. So he says, and he asks, "Sir, why don't you grant me a samadhi?" The yogi responds, "Dear one, I would be glad to convey the divine contact, but it is not my place to do so," unquote. The saint looked at me with half-closed eyes and said, "Your master will bestow that experience on you shortly. But your body is not tuned just yet. As a small lamp bulb would be shattered by excessive electrical voltage, so your nerves are unready for the cosmic current. If I give you the infinite ecstasy right now, you would be burned as though every cell were on fire. You are asking illumination from me," the yogi continued musingly. "While I am wondering, inconsiderable as I am, and with the little meditation I have done, if I have succeeded in pleasing God, what worth I may find in his eyes at the final reckoning. Sir, have you not been single-handedly seeking God for a long time?" And it goes on and on. But there's a sort of danger that is known. So the yoga gurus and the masters, they know that it's not just a trivial thing to experience samadhi, that the process involved is so important. And so the asana practice, the pranayama practice, the pratyahara practice, dharana dhyana, that's all needed for you to be suitable for a cosmic charge of energy through your body. And just like he said, if you have a 40-watt light bulb and you're trying to have it illuminate as bright as a 100-watt light bulb, the 40-watt light bulb isn't going to be able to handle the amount of energy that's going to go through it in order for it to shine like a 100-watt light bulb. So if you're going to seek samadhi, first and foremost, by yourself, it's not going to work fully, because you need the guru that's going to help you tune your system so that it can be ready for that kind of activation. And so I have a very particular experience of this, not in the yoga world, but in the Qigong world. So back in 2010, I believe, 2010, 2011, my very good friend Chris, who I'm going to have on this podcast sooner or later, he always ducks me because he's like this super weirdo about yoga knowledge, but he's in Guatemala right now teaching a yoga teacher training, and when he gets back, I'm gonna sit him down in this freaking room and we're gonna do a podcast. So Chris was studying Qigong, and his Qigong master, Michael Shen, was coming to Edmonton. And so him and I went to this Qigong practice that Michael Shen was doing. So it was about 2 hours long, I think. And we're going through all the movements. We're doing all this stuff. And at the very end, he gets us to stand in the room and he turns off the lights and it's complete darkness now. And he says, "I'm going to go up to each one of you, right, individually." So he's going up to each person. We have our eyes closed. The room is dark. We're just standing there. And he steps up kind of beside me and behind me to the right. And he places his hand on my lower back. And immediately my lower back starts to heat up. Like this immense, noticeable heat. Like a hot pack was put on my back or something. And there's this charge and I feel my muscles tightening up and I feel my body shake. And then he moves his hands and he goes right up to my ear and he whispers, "Now do something with it." And he's this old Chinese man. He must have been nearly 80 at that time. And it just shook me to the core. And he walked away and it was done. Lights turned back on. He was like, "Hey, thank you all for coming." And I was just completely dumbfounded. And that to me are one of these moments of a guru or a master channeling divine energy and bestowing it upon a student in a way that's going to be like much I'm going to be able to handle it a lot easier than if I'm trying to do myself. So that's an example of these moments of a guru coming and being like, "Okay, here, you're ready. I can bestow this to you." And it was foundational to the coming year of going to Thailand and spending 2 months practicing yoga there, and then coming back and doing a yoga teacher training and setting this new wave of yoga in my life. And even though it wasn't even particularly yoga related, and Yogananda talks about this as well too, that yoga shows up in other ways as well, especially in Christianity as well. So I'm going to continue on with the autobiography of yogi, because now we're going to start getting into the different kinds of samadhi. And there's two kinds that are talked about a lot through his books, especially in this book and in the Bhagavad Gita. God Talks with Arjuna, his version of the Bhagavad Gita. So Yogananda states, numerous bewildered seekers in the West erroneously think that an eloquent speaker or writer on metaphysics must be a master. Proof that one is a master, however, is supplied only by the ability to enter at will the breathless state, Sabhikalpa Samadhi, and by the attainment of immutable bliss, Nirbhikalpa Samadhi. The rishis have pointed out that solely by these achievements may a human being demonstrate that he has mastered Maya, the dualistic cosmic delusion. He only may say from the depths of realization, Ekam Sat, only one exists. Quote, when there is duality because of ignorance, one sees all things as distinct from the self. Shankara, the great monist, has written, when everything is known as the self, not even an atom is seen as other than the self. As soon as knowledge of the reality has sprung up, there can be no fruits of past actions to be experienced, owing to the unreality of the body, just as there can be no dream after waking. Only great gurus are able to assume the karma of disciples. So he goes on to say, Sri Yukteswar, who was his guru, would not have suffered in Srinagar unless he had received permission from the spirit within him to help his disciples in that strange way. Few saints were ever more sensitively equipped with wisdom to carry out divine commands than my God-tuned master. When I ventured a few words of sympathy over his emaciated figure, my guru said gaily, it has its good points. I am able now to get into some small ganjis, undershirts that I haven't worn in years. Listening to Master's jovial laugh, I remembered the words of St. Francis de Sales, a saint that is sad is a sad saint. And so now we have the introduction of not only samadhi being a thing, but then there being different kinds of samadhi. So in particular, Sabhikalpa Samadhi, the breathless state. So what does that mean? From what I understand, and from other practices that I've gone into and other kind of books that I've read into, there's a way to perfect pranayama that you can become breathless and still maintain your body, and that it's a part of pratyahara, sense withdrawal. That in withdrawing the senses or withdrawing the energies from the peripheral nervous system into the central nervous system, that the faculties of the body that are operating within the unconscious parts of the brain, so what is going to be keeping the lungs functioning, keeping the heart functioning, keeping the circulatory system functioning, that when you're pulling energy from them and you're putting those energies into the central nervous system, that there is a suspended state of animation that occurs, that your body almost stops in place. And it's not that you stop breathing, it's that now the faculties that run the lungs and the heart are suspended. And there is an exchange of oxygen through your cells and through your skin. And so you have come to complete control of your body in a way where you don't need your lungs to breathe. You are exchanging oxygen through your entire body and you're fully aware of it. And now you enter this breathless state. Your body still gets what it needs, but now you're not perturbed by your body anymore. You're not perturbed by your heartbeat. You're not perturbed by your lungs filling and emptying. You're not perturbed by circulation. All of that has ceased. And now all of the energy that would go into maintaining those faculties are going into receiving divine connection. That you are taking all that extra energy and you're going, hey, as a gift, here is the energy from my body to return back to source. The body doesn't die. It's in suspended animation. And now you have the capacity to then enter into those realms. At least that's how it makes sense to me. Where then near Nirvikalpa Samadhi, the attainment of immutable bliss, where your experience is complete and full in bliss. Go full circle back to that Isha Upanishad, right? Of the Purnamida mantra of this is complete and that incomplete, and all of its completeness is within all of its own completeness. That your goal of what consciousness really is and awareness is being attained through understanding this Sabikalpa Samadhi. And so to dive more into Nirvikalpa Samadhi, Yogananda goes on to say, to remove the veil of Maya is to uncover the secret of creation. He who thus denudes the universe is the only true monotheist. All others are worshipping heathen images. So long as man remains subject to the dualistic illusions of nature, the Janus-faced Maya is his goddess. He cannot know the one true God. The word illusion, Maya, manifests in men as avidya, literally not knowledge, ignorance, delusion. Maya or avidya can never be destroyed through intellectual conviction or analysis, but solely through attaining the interior state of Nirvikalpa Samadhi. The Old Testament prophets and seers of all lands and ages spoke from that state of consciousness. Ezekiel said, quote, afterwards he brought me to the gate, even the gate that looketh towards the east, and behold, the glory of the God of Israel came from the way of the east, and his voice was like a noise of many waters, and the earth shined with his glory. End quote. Yogananda continues on saying, consciousness into omnipresence, hearing the word or Om, divine sound of many waters, the vibrations of light that constitute the sole reality of creation. Among the trillion mysteries of the cosmos, the most phenomenal is light. Unlike sound waves whose transmission requires air or other material media, light waves pass freely through the vacuum of interstellar space. Even the hypothetical ether, held as the interplanetary medium of light in the undulatory theory, may be discarded on the Einsteinian grounds that the geometrical properties of space render unnecessary a theory of ether. Under either hypothesis, light remains the most subtle, the freest form material dependence of any natural manifestation. So he goes on and on, but it's all still pointing towards this understanding that to get past the gatekeepers, there is a level of self-mastery that you do need. That, you know, the guru is the next step, and that before the guru, there is still that level of self-mastery that you can do particular asana practices. You can do particular pranayama practices that you're getting more and more concentrated in your dharana practice in the dhyana, that then the guru steps up and goes, okay, you've done all this work. Here's now the next step for you to go into samadhi. And he's directly saying that your guru doesn't have to be this great intellectual, doesn't have to be this great philosopher. It's someone who has had the experience of samadhi, and it's through a particular way of surrendering to a divine cosmic flow of energy through you that is innate within all of us. So I just have a couple more things to go through in the autobiography of a yogi. Let's see here. So there's a section here on page 275 that is about Yogananda's experience with Nirvikalpa Samadhi. So he says, and quotes, "Few mortals know that the kingdom of God includes the kingdom of mundane fulfillments," Babaji observed. "The divine realm extends to the earthly, but the latter, illusory in nature, does not contain the essence of reality." So let me say that again. Few mortals know the kingdom of God includes the kingdom of mundane fulfillments. The divine realm extends to the earthly, but the latter, illusory in nature, does not contain the essence of reality. So it's saying it right there, that in this world, in this reality, we cannot find an objective God. So nothing can truly, actually represent a full depiction of God. And that's telling, because in Christianity, what do they say? That Jesus is the Son of God, and that God is Jesus, and Jesus is God, right? But in yoga, and this is from Babaji, that you cannot have a full representation of divinity as a physical thing. And that you have divinity pouring into this reality, but the reality itself is only an illusion. It's only a fabrication. And so any of us participating in this world, in order for us to go back into divinity, we actually have to let go completely of this illusion, of this reality, in order to see that our true nature is of divine origin. And that if at any point we try to intellectualize this, if I try to say, oh, I am God because of this, this, and this, and this, that's just a bundle of words. And the question is, what does it take to get into samadhi and for that state of samadhi to be noticeably present through this body? And that is the paradox, right? Because then that kind of undoes everything that I just said. And even Yogananda talks about this, that in the process of becoming enlightened, in the process of getting in contact with this realm, with Nirvikalpa Samadhi, that then you are still a part of this world. Your body is still operating in this world. Your body is still going to have its personality and its identity and all these things. But to you, everything is God. To you, everything is viewed through the light of that state of samadhi that you are maintaining. And whether or not someone wants to recognize that, it doesn't even matter. But there will be people who, for whatever reason, recognize that you are connected to something. And that's usually because they have the seeds in them to find a guru, and you become the guru. And that's literally what guru means. The dispeller of darkness. It's the bringer of light and the dispeller of darkness into light. So let's go on. I think, like I said from the beginning, this is going to be a good one. There's a lot of information, and sorry if I seem like I'm going through this quickly, but look at that. I'm already at the hour mark. I might actually have to break this up into 2 episodes because I'm not even halfway through my books, and I've only like gone through the autobiography yogi. But I'm gonna finish this one, and you know what? I'm gonna consider this part 1, and I'm gonna do part 2, even though technically this is Ashtanga Yoga Samadhi, the truth of meditation, part 4, part 1. Silly things. Okay, so let's get into these last parts. So this part comes from chapter 43, the resurrection of Sri Yukteswar, and this is now getting into like what the requirements are and like what Nirvikalpa Samadhi really is. So Sri Yukteswar has died at this point and resurrected. So he shows up to Yogananda in like a new astral form. And he starts explaining the nature of this astral realm. And it's honestly such an intense chapter. And to me, it's one of the most important in the book. But anyways, so Sri Yukteswar says, as prophets are sent on earth to help men work out their physical karma, so I have been directed by God to serve on an astral planet as a savior, Sri Yukteswar explained. It is called Hiranyaloka, or illuminated astral planet. There I am aiding advanced beings to rid themselves of astral karma and thus attain liberation from astral rebirths. The dwellers on Hiranyaloka are highly developed spiritually. All of them had acquired in their last earth incarnation the meditation-given power of consciously leaving their physical bodies at death. No one can enter Hiranyaloka unless he has passed on earth beyond the state of Sabhikalpa Samadhi into the higher state of Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Hiranyaloka inhabitants have already passed through the ordinary astral spheres, where nearly all beings from earth must go at death. There they destroyed many seeds of karma connected with their past actions in astral worlds. None but advanced devotees can perform such redemptive work effectively in the astral spheres. So that's it right there. I said over the last 3 episodes that Samadhi has gatekeepers, because Samadhi is the entrance into a whole other planet. It's a whole other new existence of life that is the next step for humanity. That this physical realm is not the end all be all. That this is a training ground for getting into those upper realms. And he says it right there that he is the gatekeeper. He is the one monitoring. He's the one that's making sure, hey, have you done your friggin' homework? Have you gotten through Sabhikalpa Samadhi and Nirvikalpa Samadhi? No, you can't get in. I like to make the joke that, like Hiranyaloka is like a nightclub that no one knows about and no one can get into. But it's so exclusive because there's a very strict hold on who can get in, right? And the ones that do get in are these ascended masters. And this is crazy. That's crazy. Who thinks about these things? Who even believes that stuff, right? But when you're diving into these yogic texts, they're all talking about it. Even going back to the Upanishads, which is like thousands of years old. You're going back to the Bhagavad Gita, which is still 1,000+ years old. You're getting into the autobiography of a yogi, getting into all these works. It's all painting that picture. It's all saying, hey, this world, this life is an illusion. This is like a beta test. This isn't the real earth. And I've realized this a long time ago, and I've said this, I think, on other episodes too in the past, that this is almost a secondary earth. That the earth itself and its beauty is holding a whole other realm that beings can go into. And then there's this planet, because in the universe and in the solar system and wherever we are placed in this, there are other beings that are like, hey, we also need a place to go and test things out. We also need a place to go to prove ourselves. And so the earth itself is like, okay, well, I'm going to make this much more dense place where you can experience everything in duality. You can experience the far reaches of darkness and evil. You can experience the far reaches of good and light. And it's up to you to navigate everything that happens to you on this planet to realize that you are performing and you are practicing and you are preparing for your next experience. So it's either going to be that you're stuck on this planet and you're just in a loop, or you can finally realize, hey, this is a training ground and I have built within me certain lessons that I have to overcome. And the way that you successfully overcome those lessons or become aware of them is by having gurus introduce to you new concepts of existence. And so when you are introduced these new concepts, you can start viewing your life in a way that's going to help you prepare for an experience of a greater potential. And that greater potential is then within these realms of samadhi. And this is really the important distinction between being a yoga instructor and being a yogi. So when you're a yogi, you noticeably have a presence around you. You noticeably have these initiating sparks that are going to propel you. So if you've just taken on a yoga teacher training and you have done a 200-hour and you're teaching and you're like, yeah, I'm making money, that's great. You're just a fitness instructor. That really has nothing to do with yoga. Even though you've taken the kind of like basic elements of the yoga practice and adapted it for physical fitness, which is great. It's going to keep people healthy and it's going to keep them coming back. But then to really say to yourself, I'm not just a yoga teacher and a yoga instructor, I'm a yogi. Now you've entered into this whole world where you are going to then kick up a whole mess of stuff within you to find all these synchronicities on navigating towards finding gurus who are going to help you on this path. And I don't like to say this, but I'm kind of doing it right now. Showing you guys this information, going through these books, doing this work, doing this podcast, displaying this information in this way, I'm kind of acting like that for you guys. I don't like to say that I'm in any way, shape, or form a guru. If people want to see me that way and they want to say, hey, you're a teacher of mine because you're helping me along this way, that's great. But I'm also a student. I'm also still learning so much. You know, there's so much information in these books that even after reading the autobiography several times, even reading the Bhagavad Gita by Yogananda several times, there's still stuff that I'm going to find that's going to blow my mind. And so I think the entrance into these realms is to not bestow upon yourself some view of mastery, but to continue viewing yourself as a student, that you are going to get an invitation into deeper teachings by seeing yourself as a student, because that's the only real way that you're going to accept having a guru, is that if you consider yourself a student still. I'm going to leave it at that because I hit my 1 hour mark plus 10 minutes. This is going to be the end of part 1 of this. I'm going to do another Samadhi episode to wrap it up, to get through the rest of the books. And so I'm going to have links for any diagrams that I found, like in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. I'm going to try to figure that out. I think I can just find the particular page and link that page so that you can see what I was talking about. And then I'll link the book itself so that you can get it either for free as a PDF or to purchase it somewhere. I'm going to link the Bihar website itself. Try to avoid Amazon. But yeah, I hope you liked this episode. Thank you again for listening. Again, I hit a milestone just recently of getting, up to 50 people a day listening to my podcast, which is great. I'm on track to put out 100 episodes, or to reach 100 episodes this year. So I'm at 75 right now. And so I have 25 left to release, which I think is doable. Because after this series, I'm going into all the different yogas. And so I'm probably going to break that up into parts too, because there's just so much to get into. And I'm going to start brainstorming some more practices and some more series. I was just thinking right now, I could go into like panchakarma or the sat karmas and kriyas, and those are all like different cleansing techniques. And I would like to also do episodes on my own phenomenal experiences. I think I'm going to do a series on powerful dreams that I've had, powerful psychedelic experiences that I've had, powerful astral travel experiences, remote viewing experiences, because I think, it's all encompassing. So when you start getting into spirituality and yoga and stuff like that, you start becoming more sensitive to these, kind of like extrasensory experiences like astral travel and remote viewing and lucid dreaming and stuff like that. So thank you again for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Enjoy.